The rain did not care about anyone's plans that night. It fell hard and heavy over the city of Velmont, drumming against rooftops and filling the gutters with black water. Most people had gone inside hours ago, but Ren Calloway was still on the street, a paper bag of groceries pressed against his chest, walking fast because he had no umbrella and no car and no one to call. He was 22, small for his age, with dark brown hair that curled when it got wet. He had a habit of biting his lower lip when he was nervous. Right now, he was biting it very hard. 3 men were following him. He had noticed them 2 blocks back. Big, slow-moving men in dark coats. They were not walking like people going home. They were walking like people with a purpose. Ren turned left. They turned left. He turned right, walking faster. They matched his pace. His heart was loud in his ears. He ducked into the narrow lane beside the old flower market. His market, where he worked 6 days a week, hoping to lose them. The lane was dark. A single yellow light buzzed above a locked door. He pressed himself against the wall, breathing fast. Footsteps. They found him in under a minute. The biggest man stepped forward. He smelled like cheap cologne and cigarettes. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "You've been hard to find," the man said. Ren opened his mouth to scream. He didn't get the chance. From the other end of the lane, 2 more men appeared. But these ones were different. They moved quietly, like shadows with weight. One of them cracked his knuckles. The other simply looked at the 3 men blocking Ren's path. "Walk away," the shadow man said. Just 2 words. The 3 men looked at each other. One of them appeared to recognize something. A face, a symbol, something, and his expression changed entirely. He grabbed his friends by the sleeves and they left without another word, almost running. Ren stood there, soaking wet, shaking slightly, grocery bag still clutched to his chest. The 2 shadow men glanced at him once, said nothing, and left the same way they had come. Ren stood alone in the lane. He looked at the spot where they had all just been. "What?" he whispered to no one. "Was that?" 3 kilometers away, in a building whose top floors were not on any city map, a phone rang. Luca Voss picked it up on the second ring. He was sitting behind a desk that cost more than most people's apartments, in a room with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over all of Velmont. He had a glass of water in front of him. He never drank when he was working. He was always working. "It's done," the voice on the phone said. The target was intercepted before contact. "The Omega is safe." "Good," Luca said. "Sir, he saw our men. He'll have questions." "He won't find answers," Luca said. "Make sure of it." He hung up. He leaned back in his chair and looked at the city below him, all its wet lights smearing in the rain. On his desk, beside the glass of water, was a single photograph. Not a surveillance photo, it was too warm for that. Someone had taken it without meaning to, maybe. It showed a young man standing in a flower market, surrounded by yellow and white blooms, laughing at something off camera. His eyes were shut from laughing so hard. Luca had looked at that photograph exactly 4 times in the past 3 months. He told himself each time that it was simply a file photo, part of a report. He almost believed it. Luca Voss was 29 years old. He ran the most powerful crime organization in the northern half of the country. He had never, not once in his life, been curious about a person. But there was something about that laugh. He turned the photograph face down and picked up his next file. Ren did not sleep well that night. He lay in his small apartment above the flower shop, listening to the rain slow down and finally stop, and thought about the 2 shadow men. They had not threatened him. They had not spoken to him. They had simply helped him without being asked, without explaining why, and then disappeared like they had never existed. It wasn't the first time, either. 2 months ago, someone had paid his hospital bill after he was mugged. Fully paid, no name left. The hospital said it was an anonymous donation, specifically for him. A month before that, the man who kept harassing him near the night market had suddenly, mysteriously, stopped showing up. Ren stared at his ceiling. Someone was watching over him. He didn't know if that was the most comforting thing in the world or the most terrifying. He pulled his blanket up to his chin and thought about it for a long time. Outside, the rain was gone. The city was quiet. And somewhere in that quiet, someone was already planning his protection for the next morning. The first time Luca's men were assigned to Callaway, it was not Luca's idea. It had started with a debt. 12 months ago, a man named Hadley Callaway had stood in this very office, gray-faced and shaking, and said, "I owe you more than I can pay. I have nothing left. But I have a son." He had paused. "He doesn't know anything about what I do. He's just a florist. Keep him safe. That's all I'm asking." Luca had stared at him for a long time. He did not deal in protection favors. That was not his business. But Hadley Callaway had once done something for Luca that no amount of money could replace. He had kept quiet when keeping quiet had almost cost him his life. Loyalty like that was rare. It was, in Luca's world, worth more than gold. 12 months, Luca had said. "I'll keep him safe for 12 months. That clears your debt." That was the deal. The problem was that 12 months had passed 3 weeks ago. Luca's men were still watching Callaway. Nobody had told them to stop. Luca had not sent the order. And every morning when he reviewed the daily report, always short, always the same, subject safe. No incidents. He told himself he would end the assignment today. He never did. "You've been reviewing the Callaway file again," said a voice from the doorway. Luca did not look up. "Don't you knock, Felix?" Felix Moran, Luca's second-in-command and the only person on earth who was not afraid of him, walked in and sat down without being invited. He was 31, sharp-eyed, with a scar along his jaw that he always refused to explain. "It's been 12 months and 3 weeks, Felix said. "The job ended. The debt is cleared. I'm aware. The men on rotation are asking questions. Tell them it's ongoing." Felix looked at him with the particular expression he only used when he thought Luca was being an idiot but was too polite to say so directly. "Have you actually seen him?" he asked. "In person?" "No. Not once. The file has photographs." Felix was quiet for a moment. Then Luca. "He's a florist who lives above his shop and feeds stray cats on Tuesday mornings. He has no idea who you are. He has no idea anyone is watching him. You've protected a stranger for over a year, and you've never even—" "That will be all, Felix." Felix stood up. He walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the frame. "The quarterly gala is in 2 weeks, he said. "The Callaway flower shop is doing the arrangements. He'll be delivering them personally." He paused. "Thought you should know, since it's in your building and all." He left. Luca sat very still. He looked at the file on his desk. He looked at the photograph that he had, by now, looked at 37 times. He was keeping count now, which was already a problem. A florist who fed stray cats on Tuesday mornings. He closed the file. He opened it again. 12 months and 3 weeks, he said to the empty room. Then he wrote a note on the gala's planning document. Confirm florist delivery. In-person verification required. He told himself it was a security measure. Even he didn't believe that anymore. Ren, for his part, was having a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. He had fed the cats, 3 of them regulars who he had named after types of flowers. Iris was the gray one. Dahlia was the orange one. The small black one with one white ear he had named Basil, which was not a flower, but it suited him. He was arranging a large order of white peonies when his phone rang. "Ren Callaway?" said the voice on the other end. Professional, crisp. "Yes. This is the events office at Voss Tower. We'd like to confirm your delivery for the Voss quarterly gala. 2 weeks from Friday." Rayton blinked. He had almost forgotten about that order. It was the biggest order his shop had ever taken. Someone from the tower had come in 6 weeks ago and commissioned an enormous arrangement. The pay was extraordinary. "Yes, confirmed," he said. "You'll be delivering personally?" "Yes. I always do for large orders." "Excellent. We'll send you the access details." A short pause. "We look forward to meeting you, Mr. Callaway." The call ended. Ren held his phone for a moment. He had heard of Voss Tower, of course. Everyone in Velmont had. It was the tallest building downtown, and Luca Voss, its owner, was the kind of man whose name people said in quiet voices with careful faces. Nobody said exactly what he did, but nobody was confused about what kind of man he was either. Voss Tower, Ren said to Basil, who had somehow gotten inside and was sitting on the work table. Basil blinked at him slowly. Probably fine, Ren said. He went back to his peonies. He was not, for once, entirely right. The morning of the gala delivery, Ren woke up at 5. He had 40 arrangements to transport. He had borrowed his neighbor's van, a kind old woman named Mrs. Park who asked for nothing in return except that he water her ferns while she visited her daughter. He had loaded the van by 6:30 and was pulling into the underground delivery entrance of Voss Tower by 7. A man in a black suit met him at the bay doors. "Mr. Calloway?" the man said. "That's me." The man looked at him for just a half-second too long. Something passed across his face. Recognition, maybe, or something like surprise. Then it was gone. "Follow me, please." They moved the arrangements in 4 trips, using a service elevator that smelled like cold metal and something expensive. Ren focused on the flowers, on keeping the blooms upright, on not scuffing the bases of the tall arrangements against the elevator doors. He had learned early that beautiful work could be ruined in the last 5 minutes if you stopped paying attention. The event floor was breathtaking. The room had been set for several hundred guests. Long tables, crystal glasses, candle holders that hadn't been lit yet. And now his flowers, white and gold and deep green, filling every surface. Ren stood back and looked at it. It was, he thought, some of his best work. "That's quite something." The voice came from behind him. Ren turned. The man standing at the edge of the room was tall. He was wearing a dark suit, no tie, top button open, like someone who had started to dress formally and then reconsidered. His hair was dark and a little long at the front. He had very still eyes, the kind that watched everything without moving. Ren had never seen him before, but something about the way the suited staff in the room had all very slightly shifted their posture when this man appeared, that told him everything about who he was looking at. "Thank you," Ren said, because it was the polite thing to say and because his brain was slightly behind the rest of him. "You're the florist," the man said. It was not a question. "Rayton Calloway." He held out his hand without thinking. The man looked at his hand. Then he crossed the room, unhurried, each step deliberate, and shook it. His hand was warm. His grip was firm. He held it a moment longer than a handshake needed. "Luca Voss," he said. Ren's brain caught up. "Oh," Ren said. Something that might have been amusement moved through Luca's eyes. It was very brief. "Is that a problem?" "No," Ren said. "I just didn't expect." He stopped. What had he expected, exactly? "Sorry." "Your flowers are done. All 40 arrangements. I'll leave the care instructions with your events team. Walk me through them."
Rayton blinked. "Sorry."
"The arrangements." Luca was looking at them now, not at Ren. "Walk me through them. What you chose and why." It was such an unusual request that Ren almost laughed. He managed not to. "Okay," he said. And so Ren Calloway, who had been unknowingly protected for over a year by the man now standing 3 feet away from him, walked Luca Voss through 40 flower arrangements and explained every choice he had made. Luca listened to all of it. He asked 2 questions. Both were good ones. When Ren finished, Luca looked at him with those still, watching eyes and said, "You're good at this." "I know," Ren said, and then immediately wanted to disappear, because that sounded incredibly rude, but Luca smiled. It was small. It was quick. Changed his entire face. "Good," Luca said. "I like people who know what they're worth." Ren left 10 minutes later, down in the service elevator with the empty trolleys and the lingering smell of cold metal and something expensive. In the van, driving away, he realized his heart was still going fast. He told himself it was just nerves. Outside Voss Tower, Felix watched the florist's borrowed van pull out into the street. He put his phone to his ear. He met him, Felix said, in person, for about 20 minutes. The voice on the other end was quiet for a moment. "And," Luca said. Felix looked at the van until it disappeared around the corner. "You tell me," he said. The line went quiet again. Then, Update the protection schedule. Rotating teams, 6-hour shifts. The line went dead. Felix smiled very slowly, at no one at all. Luca told himself he had a legitimate reason to visit the flower shop. The gala had been a success. The client who organized it had already asked for the same florist for their next event. It was reasonable, entirely reasonable, for Luca to personally verify the quality of the vendor before recommending them again. He believed this for approximately 2 days. Then he got in his car on a Wednesday afternoon and drove to the Callaway flower shop. He didn't tell Felix. Felix would have made a face. The shop was small. It had a green awning with white letters and a wooden stand outside with 3 buckets of cut flowers. Orange marigolds, purple lavender, white daisies. A handwritten sign read, "Tuesday specials. Buy 2, get 1 free. Today is Wednesday, but ask nicely and I'll pretend." Luca stood on the pavement and read the sign twice. He went inside. A bell rang above the door. The shop smelled extraordinary. Green and sweet and alive, layered in a way that no perfume had ever quite managed. Plants and flowers crowded every surface, some hanging from the ceiling, some arranged on wooden shelving painted pale yellow. It looked like someone had designed a room to feel like the inside of a garden. Ren appeared from the back, carrying a pair of scissors and wearing a dark green apron. When he saw Luca, he stopped walking. "You," Ren said. "Me," Luca agreed. A pause. Ren tilted his head. "Did you need more flowers?" "I was in the area." Ren looked at him with an expression that was difficult to read. Not suspicious exactly. More like someone who was carefully deciding whether to believe something. "You're Luca Voss," Ren said. "You're never just in the area. That's a large assumption. Am I wrong?" Luca said nothing, which was answer enough. Ren set the scissors down on the counter. He leaned against it, arms crossed, looking at Luca with those eyes that Luca was now noticing were a very particular shade. Not quite brown, not quite green, something in between that changed depending on the light. "What do you actually want?" Ren asked. Not rudely, just directly. Luca, who had run negotiations with dangerous men, who had sat in rooms where the stakes were lives and fortunes, found that question genuinely difficult. "I don't know yet," he said. It was the most honest thing he had said to anyone in years. Ren stared at him. Then he uncrossed his arms and said, "Okay, do you want tea?"
There.
"I make it in the back. It's not fancy, but you look like you need to sit down and have a normal moment." Luca Voss had not had a normal moment in approximately 9 years. "All right," he said. The back of the shop was even more chaotic than the front. A work table covered in clippings, several potted plants in various states of being repotted, a small electric kettle, 2 mismatched chairs, and, sitting on a pile of folded newspapers, a small black cat with 1 white ear. "That's Basil," Ren said. "He adopted me. He's a cat. He's Basil." Ren handed him a mug.
Sit.
Luca sat, in a mismatched chair, in a tiny back room of a flower shop, with a cat staring at him. Ren sat across from him, pulling his legs up, perfectly comfortable in his own space. "So," Ren said, "what does a mafia boss do on a Wednesday afternoon when he's not being a mafia boss?" Luca looked at him. "You know what I am. Everyone in Velmont knows what you are. And you're not afraid." Ren considered this. Should I be? Luca thought about 12 months of protection. About the photograph on his desk. About the man who had stood in his office and asked him to keep his son safe, and how Luca had agreed to 12 months and then somehow had not stopped. "No," Luca said quietly. "You shouldn't be." Something shifted in Ren's expression. Very small. Just a fraction. "Good," Ren said and picked up his tea. They talked for 40 minutes. About nothing important. The shop, the neighborhood, a horrible neighbor who kept stealing Ren's parking spot. A new type of rose Ren had been struggling to keep alive. When Luca stood to leave, Basil jumped off the newspapers and sat on his empty chair, as if claiming it. Ren laughed. That full, closed-eyes laugh that Luca had seen in the photograph 37 times. Seeing it in person was entirely different. Luca left the shop and sat in his car for a moment before starting it. His chest felt strange, slightly too full, like something had shifted a few degrees and not settled back into place. He drove back to Voss Tower. He called Felix. "Double the morning rotation," he said. Felix was quiet for 3 full seconds. "You saw him again." "That's not what I said." "You didn't have to." A pause. "Luca, what are you doing?" Luca looked at the city outside his window. "I don't know yet," he said again. "It was the cat that started it." Basil went missing on a Thursday. Run looked everywhere, under the work table, behind the plant shelves, up the stairs to the apartment, out in the alley behind the shop where Basil sometimes sat and judged passing strangers. Nothing. The cat was gone. He put up notices. He asked Mrs. Park next door. He walked 3 blocks in every direction calling Basil's name, which was embarrassing and also didn't work. By Friday evening, he was genuinely worried. Saturday morning, Basil came home. He was sitting on the front step when Wren opened the shop at 7. Perfectly fine. Clean. No injuries. Around his neck was a new green collar with a small silver tag. Wren picked him up and turned the tag over. It had Basil's name on one side. On the other side, it had an address, Wren's address, and a phone number. The phone number was not one Wren recognized. He almost didn't call it. He stood in the shop for 20 minutes, holding the cat, turning the tag over and over. Then he called. It rang once. "You found him," Luca said. Wren went very still. "Where was he?" "One of my men found him 2 blocks away Thursday night." He looked lost. A pause. "I thought the collar might help if he wandered again." Wren sat down slowly on the stool behind the counter. "Your men?" "Yes. Your men, who are in this neighborhood, found my cat." "That's correct." "Why are your men in my neighborhood, Luca?" A long silence. Wren's heart was doing something complicated. He kept his voice level. "How long have you had people watching this street?" Another silence. Longer this time. "Tell me," Wren said. Quiet. Not angry yet. Just waiting. Luca told him. Not all of it. Not Hadley Calloway, not the debt, not the photograph on the desk. But enough. 12 months of protection. Rotating teams. The men in the rainy lane, 8 months ago. The hospital bill. When Luca stopped talking, the shop was very quiet. "My father," Wren said finally. "This was for my father. Originally." "Yes." "And after 12 months?" Luca didn't answer immediately. That silence was louder than anything he could have said. Wren set Basil down gently on the counter. The cat sat there, deeply unbothered by everything, tail curled around his front paws. "I need you to stop," Wren said.
Reden.
"I'm not angry." His voice was steady. "I understand what you're telling me, and I appreciate that nothing bad happened to me. But I can't." He stopped, took a breath. "I can't have someone watching me without my knowing. It doesn't matter why. I can't live that way. You were never in danger from my men." "That's not the point." He picked up the tag from the counter and held it. "Stop the watches, Luca. Please." Another long silence. "All right," Luca said. The call ended. Wren sat alone in the quiet shop for a long time. When Mrs. Park knocked on the door at 9 to ask if he'd found Basil, she found Wren behind the counter, arranging flowers with a focused, careful expression that she recognized. It was the face he made when he was working through something difficult and pretending he wasn't. "Found the cat," he told her and smiled. "Good," she said. "You look terrible." "Thank you, Mrs. Park." She left. He kept arranging. His hands were entirely steady. His chest was not. 3 kilometers away, Luca stood at his window. "Pull the teams," he told Felix. Felix didn't ask questions. He made one call and it was done. Then he looked at Luca, who was still at the window, and said carefully, "What happens now?" Luca looked at the city. "Nothing," he said. Felix nodded slowly. He left without another word. Luca stood at the window for a long time after. The photograph on the desk was still there. He had not looked at it since the gala. He didn't need to anymore. The laugh was in his memory now, real and immediate, not a flat image on paper. He picked up the photograph and put it in the desk drawer. Then he sat down and tried to go back to work. He got through about 4 minutes of it. 7 days passed. Luca did not go back to the shop. He did not call. His desk was full of work and he worked through it, and Felix was careful not to mention the subject, and the daily report on the Callaway address was gone because there was no longer a rotation there. The city moved on as cities do. On the 4th day, Luca received a small package. It was delivered by a regular courier, standard brown paper, his name on the front in handwriting he didn't recognize. His security team cleared it before it reached his office. Inside was a single small plant in a terracotta pot. It had round, dark green leaves and smelled faintly of something warm and herbal. There was a card. This is a peperomia. Almost impossible to kill. Water it once a week. Don't overthink it. Luca set it on his desk. He looked at it for a very long time. Then he called Felix. Clear my Thursday afternoon, he said. Felix's voice was absolutely neutral. Any particular reason? I'm going to a flower shop. This time Felix did not even bother pretending. Finally, he said, and hung up. When Luca arrived on Thursday, the shop was busy. 2 other customers, a woman choosing birthday flowers, a teenager buying something that was clearly an apology bouquet. Run was helping them both at the same time with the easy, unhurried warmth of someone who genuinely liked his work. He looked up when the bell rang. He saw Luca. He finished what he was saying to the teenager, handed over the wrapped bouquet, and waited until the shop was quiet. You got the plant, Rin said. Yes. Did you water it? Once. Good. He looked at Luca steadily. You stopped the watches. I did what you asked.
Reichen nodded.
He was quiet for a moment, the way someone is quiet when they're deciding something. Then, why did you come back? Luca stepped further into the shop. He stopped at the counter, close enough that he could see the fine detail of the pressed flower designs on the ceramic pots behind Ren's shoulder. Because I wanted to, he said. No other reason. No protection schedule. No debt. No file. He looked at Ren directly. Just this. Ren held his gaze for a long moment. Then he uncrossed his arms. Basil missed you, he said. On cue, Basil appeared from behind a pot of tall ferns, walked directly to Luca's foot, and sat on it. Luca looked down at the cat. That's not a neutral statement, he said. No, Ren agreed, and the corner of his mouth moved. It isn't. They had tea again. The conversation was easier this time. At some point, Ren showed him the new rose he had been trying to keep alive. It was a deep dark red, almost black at the edges. He described the particular challenge of its roots with such concentrated focus that Luca found himself watching his hands, how they moved when he talked about something he cared about. When Luca left that evening, Ren said, Come back when the rose blooms. I want you to see it. When will that be?
Reichen smiled.
Few weeks. If I do everything right. It was, Luca thought on the way down to his car, the best kind of invitation. It had a timeline. It had a reason. It was built on something real. He sat in the car and realized, for the first time in a very long time, that he was looking forward to something. Not an outcome. Not a result. Just an event. A rose blooming. A person's face when they showed him. He started the car. He was smiling slightly, and he didn't notice. The rose had not bloomed yet when the trouble came. It arrived in the form of a message delivered to Luca's office on a Tuesday morning, written on plain paper, no signature. The florist has information he doesn't know he has. We want it. Stand down. Luca read it twice. He called Felix into the office, put the note on the desk, and waited. Felix read it. They know you've been to the shop. Someone's been watching the watch. Luca's jaw was tight. They think Run has something. Does he?
No.
Luca stood up. His father. Hadley Callaway worked for Renner's operation before he worked for me. He may have left something behind. Passed it without knowing. Passed it to Ren? Or hidden it? Somewhere Run would keep it safe without understanding what it was. He moved to the window. An old photograph. A letter. A key. Something. So they'll go to the shop. Tonight, probably. Now that they know I've removed the teams. He turned around. Get the car. Felix was already moving. Run was closing up at 8. He was tired, the kind that comes from a full day of real work. He had locked the front, turned off the main lights, and was in the back unpotting something that had gotten root rot when he heard the back door. He had not unlocked the back door. He stood very still. The door opened slowly. 2 men stepped inside. They were not the frightening kind of dangerous, they were the organized kind, which was worse. One of them looked at Ren with a flat, businesslike expression and said, "Don't make noise. We just have questions." "About what?" Ren kept his voice steady. He was thinking about the scissors on the table, about the phone in his apron pocket. "Your father left something. We want to know where it is." Ren's hands were still. "I haven't spoken to my father in 2 years. We know, but he sent you something. Before he left the city." The man stepped forward. "A package. Small. Maybe a year ago." Ren's mind went to a box on his top shelf. It had arrived with no explanation, just his name in his father's handwriting. Luca had said his father had asked him to keep Ren safe, but he had never thought about what his father might have left behind. "I don't know what you're talking about," Ren said. The man took another step. The back door opened again. Luca came through it like he owned the space, which, in a certain fundamental sense, he did because men like Luca Voss owned every room they walked into, not by announcing it, but by the simple fact of how they moved through it. Behind him came 2 others. The 2 intruders went very still. Luca looked at them. "You received my answer," he said. "Leave." There was a long, taut moment. Then they left. The room was quiet. Ren let out a breath he had not known he was holding. Luca turned to him. He looked at Ren with a steadiness that somehow, impossibly, made the room feel less dangerous just by existing in it. "Are you hurt?" Luca asked.
No. Ren swallowed.
"The box," he said. "On the shelf. I think it might be what they wanted." Luca nodded. "Don't open it. I'll send someone for it tonight." "Okay." Ren looked at him. There was something shaking loose inside his chest, something he had been holding firmly in place for weeks, and it was becoming very hard to continue holding. "You weren't supposed to be watching anymore." "I wasn't watching," Luca said. "I had information. I acted on it." He paused. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Luca looked at him for a long moment. In the dim back room of the shop, with the plants all around them and basil somewhere in the shadows and the smell of earth and green things in the air, he looked less like what he was and more like something else entirely. Something that Ren did not have an easy word for. "You were afraid," Luca said quietly. "Not a question." "A bit," Ren admitted.
I'm sorry.
"It wasn't your fault. The men came because of me." His voice was steady, but something under it was not. "Because they knew I'd started coming here. They used you to get to me. I'm sorry for that." Ren looked at him, at this man who ran a city from a tower of glass, who had protected a stranger for over a year and then, when the stranger asked him to stop, had stopped, who had come back on a Thursday with no reason except wanting to, who had stood in this back room and asked first if he was hurt. "It's okay," Ren said. Luca shook his head slightly, like it wasn't. "It's okay," Ren said again, softer. Basil came out of the shadows and sat between them on the floor. Despite everything, Ren laughed. And then Luca was close, crossing the small space between them slowly, giving him every second to move away if he wanted. And when Ren didn't move, Luca reached out and very carefully tucked a loose strand of hair back from Ren's face. Just that one small thing. Ren's heart did something enormous and quiet. The rose bloomed on a Friday. Ren found it in the morning. The deep dark red petals finally open, edges curling just slightly, the smell of it filling the whole back room. He stood there for a moment just looking at it. Then he picked up his phone. "It bloomed," he sent. 3 minutes passed. Then, "I'll be there at noon." Luca arrived at 12 exactly. He came through the front door this time like a regular customer, though the slight shift in posture of the 2 people walking past outside made it clear he was never entirely regular anywhere. Ren led him to the back. Luca looked at the rose for a long moment. His expression was quiet and focused, the same way he listened to things he actually cared about. "It's remarkable," he said. "Took me 8 weeks," Rin said. "I almost gave up 3 times. Why didn't you?" Rin glanced at him. "I wanted to see it." Luca looked at him then, turned away from the rose, and Rin held that gaze steadily even though something in his chest was doing something it had been doing for weeks. A warm, complicated, undeniable something. "I owe you a full explanation," Luca said. "You've given me most of it. The rest." He sat down in the mismatched chair. "Your father, the debt, how it started." Rin pulled up the other chair and sat. "Tell me." So Luca told him everything. Hadley Calloway's visit to the office. The agreement, 12 months. The debt that was cleared 3 weeks before the gala. The protection that was supposed to end and didn't. Rin listened without interrupting. "Why didn't it end?" he asked when Luca was done. Luca was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket and set something on the work table between them. It was a photograph. Rin in the flower market, surrounded by yellow and white blooms, laughing at something off camera. His eyes were shut. Rin looked at it for a long time. "Someone sent this in the original report," Luca said. "I don't know why I kept it." He paused. "That's not true. I kept it because I looked at it and I wanted to meet the person in it. That's not a reason I'm used to having." Rin picked up the photograph. "I look ridiculous," he said. "Mrs. Park had just told me her fern had grown a face." "It's the way you're laughing," Luca said simply. Rin set the photograph down. He looked at Luca, at this man who had built walls around himself so completely that curiosity had felt like a foreign language, and who had nevertheless followed that one strange thread all the way to a small shop with a green awning and a cat named Basil. "You spent a year making sure I was safe," Rin said. "And then you kept coming back when you didn't have to." "Yes. And you almost didn't, because you didn't know what to do with the wanting." Luca looked at him. Something unguarded moved through his expression. "Yes."
Rin nodded slowly.
He looked at his hands, then back up. "I've been thinking," he said, "that I should be angrier than I am. About the watching. About all of it." He paused. "But then I think about the rain that night and the hospital bill and the men who showed up on Thursday." He picked up the photograph again. "And I think about someone who kept a photo of a stranger for a year because of a laugh."
Rin.
"I'm not angry," Rin said. "I want you to know that." He looked up. "I'm just trying to understand what this is. What you want it to be." Luca moved his chair forward, just slightly, closing the space between them by half. "I want to come here on Wednesdays," he said, "and Thursdays, and any other day you'll have me. I want to hear about the plants and the cats and Mrs. Park's ferns." His voice was steady, but underneath it was something real and slightly undefended, like a room with the windows open. "I want to learn what you're laughing at." Ren looked at him for a long, quiet moment. Then he smiled. Not the polite smile, not the customer smile, but the real one, the one from the photograph, close-eyed and whole. "Then come back tomorrow," Ren said. "I'll come back tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after." Basil, as if deciding the conversation had gone on long enough and a conclusion had been reached, jumped onto the table between them and sat directly on the photograph. Both of them looked at him. Basil looked back, completely unbothered, and yawned. This time they laughed together at the same time in the same small room. Outside, the city moved on. The sun moved. The flowers in the market opened fully in the afternoon light. And in a shop with a green awning and a sign that still offered Tuesday specials on Wednesdays, something careful and real was beginning. Built slowly, honestly, one visit at a time, between a man who ran a city from a tower of glass and a man who grew roses in the back of a shop and named his cat after an herb. It was not a loud beginning, but it was entirely the right one.